than 72 hours ago, President Biden kicked off the election year with a fiery speech attacking Donald Trump and his supporters, labeling the former president a threat to democracy.
Choice is clear. Donald Trump's campaign is about him, not America. He's willing to sacrifice our democracy, put himself in power. Trump and his MAGA supporters not only embrace political violence, but they laugh about it. Trump's assault on democracy isn't just part of his past. It's what he's promising for the future. Trump is now promising a full-scale campaign of revenge and retribution. He went on to say he'd be a dictator on day one. He calls those who oppose him vermin. He talks about the blood of America as being poisoned, echoing the same exact language used in Nazi Germany.
Uplifting. And now we're expecting to hear another speech from President Biden. The president will be giving remarks any moment now in Charleston, South Carolina. The state resurrected his political life in the 2020 primary after losses in Iowa and New Hampshire and Nevada. And it seems his campaign is flatlining and needs a jolt. Emily, Axios says Democrats were pretty enthused with his speech on Friday. He mentioned Donald Trump, I believe, 44 times, the economy, 0. I found it to be angry and not uplifting. I think winning presidential campaigns inspire. You think Obama, hope and change. It worked. I've heard Democrats argue this was just a specific note we're hitting, perhaps to shore up suburban women or independents, and we're going to have more to preview. What do you think we'll hear today?
Oh, I think we're going to hear the same. It is the one note played over and over again that Trump is a racist and a threat to democracy. And now he here in South Carolina is planning to essentially engage in a racially charged speech, which outlines that white extremism is the worst threat right now to our democracy, second to President Trump. I think everyone is exhausted by it. And this is a theme that he keeps hitting over and over again because he believes it. What I'm curious about is that it is clear that the continued emphasis he places on this is only working for so long. And it's only working with a specific group of loyalists to him. So it increases the chances, as he refuses to get off of this train, that a third party Democrat runner will actually pull a lot of votes. And I'm curious about the people who are clearly running the show behind him. What do they say about that? Are they enjoying watching it? We know that there are reports that President Obama has come out and said, look, buddy, hey, let's have lunch. Like, I have been afraid of Trump's essentially power for quite some time and the ability that he might actually win this election. So who are the other voices? Why isn't he listening? Is it because someone there is propping him up in that way? I think it raises a lot of questions. To me, I'm not surprised at all by this. And that's the final thing, that none of this is surprising whatsoever. I think voters deserve better. And the question is simply when the voters will vote with at the ballots and prove to this president we deserved better all along.
Guy, I think this speech on Friday, I thought a lot about it. I think it had two audiences. One, the progressive left. They're very upset over his actions in Israel. They feel it's insufficient support for Palestinian people. Shore up the progressives, give them some red meat. But two, suburban women, remind them you can't vote for the alternative. This is why, come home to me.
Yeah, and the playbook was rather successful for the Democrats and for Biden's party in the midterm elections. So I think Republicans shouldn't just dismiss the potency of the issue. The question does become, is it too one note? Are people too, to Emily's point, exhausted of it? And will people have had enough after 4 years of the failures of this administration to say, okay, I get the point he's making, and yet we can't take this anymore. I was better when Trump was president. My family was better off when Trump was president. That's maybe going to be the tension of this election. One quick thought about Barack Obama, since you mentioned him. Former president apparently staging this little mini intervention. I kind of wonder how that would be received by Joe Biden specifically, because there are reports out there that there were some tensions, a little bit of bitterness there where he felt disparaged by Obama. And Obama has said a few things about him. I just wonder if I'm going to come in and fix it is the attitude that Joe Biden wants to hear from anyone, let alone that particular individual.
And to that point, Harris, so Obama reportedly, according to the Washington Post, mentioned David Plouffe, one of his former aides. And that name kind of strikes a chord with Biden because apparently David Plouffe was the one deployed to say, back down, let Hillary run in 2016. So I'm not sure how receptive he will be.
Look, you hit a lot of notes playing that song. And one of the things that I can't miss is the fact that Joe Biden right now is shedding the black vote and that in the Hispanic community as well, communities as well. And so what does that look like to America's first black president? Maybe a way he can fix it, because that was your wording. Can he fix it? That's just one of the areas. look, Biden is going to walk into Chicago where black residents are upset because their resources are being usurped by illegal immigration. Biden's going to walk in there for the convention this coming summer.
Good point.
I mean, this is a hot mess sandwich. You got to pick something other than your Bidenomic policies. Look, Obama's probably saying it. Behind the scenes, maybe they're saying it. Axelrod's saying it publicly, David Axelrod. Democrats are looking at this and saying, you got to pick a sure thing. And what do they pick? Hate Donald Trump. That's got to work, right, guys? I mean, isn't that what worked last time? And this is why those two men need to debate. Because America shouldn't be hinged on who hates one more than the other. It's about what makes us better as a country. And we need to hear somebody say that on a stage with the other guy saying that. And who is that going to be? So we need this. We need it. As soon as there is a primary, whoever is decided and comes out on the other side, Biden seems to think he's anointed himself to be that person for the Democrats. He better get ready because he's going to have to debate that other side. America deserves that.
They do. And Rebecca, there are some smart Democrats who are saying this simply isn't enough. A lot of them in Obama world. And there have been all these pieces of people saying there's alarm bells. But I want to pull up this New York Times Magazine cover. Here you'll see it. And the headline is really interesting. Alarming calm. That's how they describe President Biden. The calmest Democrats in the country, they say, are his campaign. They think we've got this. All we have to do is hate Donald Trump, perhaps not realizing their own infirmities, like First Lady Jill Biden having to constantly help Biden off the debate stage where he seemed confused.
Well, it's also incredibly patronizing that Joe Biden thinks he's going to go in and he's as Harris pointed out, he's losing the black vote, so he's going to come in and whip them up on racism and Donald Trump. Why not talk to them about the issues that black Americans care about, which happen to be the same issues that many of us all care about, which is the economy, jobs, the illegal immigrants coming in. And it's not just that that they are, competing for jobs, but it's creating really difficult situations just in the area from crime-wise. These are the issues that black voters care about, and Joe Biden isn't going to be, to the extent that we can tell, going to be speaking on these issues. It's back to firing people up, talking about racism, talking about Donald Trump.
No doubt about it. It is an interesting playbook. We will see if it works.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.